You've done everything right. You read the books, the ones written by billionaires. You watched the interviews. You copied the morning routine, the mindset, the habits. And nothing happened. So you did what everyone does. You concluded the problem was you. Not disciplined enough, not smart enough, not built for it. You're about to find out that's wrong. And the proof comes from the middle of World War II. In 1943, American bombers were being shot out of the sky over Europe at a horrifying rate. The military needed to add armor to the planes. But armor is heavy, cover the whole plane, and it can barely fly. So they had to choose, where does the armor go? They did the obvious thing. They studied the planes that came back from missions and mapped every bullet hole. The pattern was clear. The fuselage, the wings, the body, riddled with holes. The engines and cockpit, barely touched. The conclusion seemed just as clear. Reinforce where the planes are getting shot. Then a statistician named Abraham Wald looked at the same data. Wald was a Hungarian mathematician who had fled Europe as Hitler rose to power and ended up in a secret military math unit at Columbia University called the Statistical Research Group. In 1943, he wrote a report analyzing exactly this problem, and he saw what everyone else had missed. The military was studying the wrong planes. Every plane they examined was a plane that made it home. The planes that got hit in the engine never came back to be counted. Read that again. The bullet holes on the survivors weren't a map of where planes get shot. They were a map of where a plane can get shot and still fly home. The engines looked untouched not because bullets missed them, but because every plane hit there was at the bottom of the English Channel. The armor didn't belong where the holes were. It belonged exactly where the holes weren't. This is called survivorship bias, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Because it's not a war story, it's the reason you feel like a failure. Think about where your idea of success actually comes from. The billionaire who dropped out of college. You know his name, you've seen the documentary. But the study you'll never see is the million other dropouts from that same decade who just stayed broke. They don't give TED Talks, they don't write books, nobody interviews them. They're the planes that didn't come back. The trader who bet everything on one stock and got rich. He's on a podcast telling you to take big risks. The thousands who made the exact same bet and lost everything? Silent, invisible, statistically deleted. You are not learning from success. You are learning from a filtered data set, where the filter is failure itself. And here's where it starts costing you actual money. When researchers studied mutual fund performance, they found something quietly scandalous. Fund companies routinely close down or merge their losing funds. The failures just vanish from the records. So when you look at the average returns of the funds available today, you're only looking at the survivors. Financial researchers, including a famous 1995 study led by Stephen Brown, showed this inflates the performance you see. The graveyard of dead funds is missing from the data. The market you're shown is the market that lived. Same with the stock index itself. Companies that collapse get delisted, removed. The index is a highlight reel that keeps editing out its own failures, while you compare your messy, honest results against it and wonder why you feel behind. You're comparing your full data to everyone else's survivors. And it gets stranger. In 1987, two veterinarians published a study on cats that had fallen from high-rise buildings. The data showed something bizarre. Cats falling from higher floors seemed to have better survival rates than cats falling from lower ones. For a moment, it looked like falling farther was safer. Then someone asked the Wald question. Which cats are missing from this data? The cats that didn't survive the fall were never brought to the vet. The dataset was only ever the survivors. Once you know this pattern, you see the machine behind so much of your self-doubt. Every success story that made you feel behind is a surviving plane. Every "just follow your passion" speech comes from the one person it worked for, standing on a stage built over an invisible graveyard. Every business case study you were handed in school was a study of the planes that landed. Nobody was lying to you. That's the twist. The winners aren't hiding the truth. The dead are just silent. And silence doesn't show up in the data. So the feeling you've been carrying, I did what they did and it didn't work, so something is wrong with me, was never a fair test. You were copying the bullet holes on the survivors. You were reinforcing the fuselage, while the real risks, the engine hits, the things that actually take people down, were invisible because everyone they happened to never got the microphone. So what do you actually do with this? You learn to ask one question, the Wald question. What am I not seeing? Who tried this and isn't here to tell me? Before you copy anyone's strategy, the dropouts, the traitors, the gurus, go looking for the graveyard. Find the people it didn't work for. They're harder to find because failure is quiet. But they hold the information the survivors physically cannot give you, where the engine is. Because the survivors can only ever show you where they got lucky. The missing can show you where it's fatal. You were never bad at following advice. You were handed a map of bullet holes and told it was a map of danger. It was the opposite all along. So the next time a success story makes you feel small, remember the bombers. Remember that the most important data in your life is the data that never made it back. And start asking about the planes you can't see.